Welcome to the Community Health Hero Show, where we spotlight local organizations that provide much-needed health and wellness resources and information so that everyone in our community can strive to live healthier, happier, and longer lives. I'm Dr. Penny Walker, Senior Medical Director for United Healthcare Southeast Region. Thank you for joining us. Today on Community Health Heroes, we'll be speaking with Dr. Lucio Mealy, Professor of Medicine and Director for Interinstitutional Programs at the LSU Stanley Scott Cancer Center and Louisiana Cancer Research Center, who will talk about the latest breast cancer research taking place right here in our community. Darlene Santana, Director of Programs for the Metropolitan Center for Women and Children, who will talk about a very serious topic that has been in the news lately, domestic violence. Sean O'Mahony, owner and chef of Breads on Oak, who will talk about the many exciting Eat Fit NOLA items on their menu. And in recognition of October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, Christiana Stewart, who will talk about a wonderful program she has created to help bring spiritual support and healing to women with cancer. So don't go away, we'll be right back with more Community Health Heroes.
NFC, AFC, offensive linemen, defensive tackles, quarterbacks, and cornerbacks are all working with United Way for a million little reasons. The kids of our communities, to ensure their academic success all the way to graduation day. You see, it takes about 12 years to create a graduate, but it takes the same time to create a dropout. And the difference between a kid becoming one or the other could be a professional athlete, or it could be you. Studies showed the earlier we get to kids, the better their chances. So become a United Way volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor, and make a difference in the life of a child, for the life of that child.
Give.
Advocate.
Volunteer.
Live united. Join your favorite NFL players. Take the pledge. Go to unitedway.org.
October is one of the busiest months for cancer recognition. Everything from walks, runs, galas, seminars, and lunch, all raising much needed funds and creating awareness of this disease. But as most people are aware, any treatment or possible cure for cancer starts with research. Joining us today to talk about the latest breast cancer research taking place in our community is Dr. Lucio Mealy, Professor of Medicine and Director for Interinstitutional Programs at LSU Stanley Scott Cancer Center and Louisiana Cancer Research Center. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today, Dr. Mealy.
It's a pleasure.
So I'm very curious about your research that's going on. Can you tell me something about that?
Certainly. So we're addressing breast cancer from a number of angles. First of all, breast cancer isn't a single disease. There's no such thing as just breast cancer. Mm-hmm. What we have in this area more frequently than in other parts of the country is a subtype of breast cancer that's called triple negative, that doesn't have receptors for estrogen or progesterone, and it doesn't have the so-called HER2/neu gene amplification. Now, these tumors tend to affect predominantly younger women, minorities, and they are very aggressive. That's part of the reason why Louisiana and neighboring areas have one of the highest breast cancer mortalities in the nation. However, these tumors are not a single entity themselves. Triple negatives are defined by what they don't have. So what we're doing is dissecting what is wrong with different kinds of triple negative disease. Right now, the only option that you have to treat these tumors is chemotherapy. It works fairly well for some and not at all for others, and we don't really understand why that is. So what we're doing is we're sampling tumors and sequencing their genomes to determine which genes are damaged in individual cases. And there are significant differences between patients. Even though these tumors may look the same under the microscope, when you actually go and look at the genes, they have different forms of genetic damage. And therefore, they're likely to respond to different treatments.
Right. So our mortality is high here because we have a unique, it sounds like, a very different type of cancer. They're not all the same.
No.
And they're impacting younger women.
That's right.
Okay.
But that means that some women get diagnosed even before they reach an age where screening would be recommended. I mean, it's not entirely unusual in this area to see women being diagnosed with breast cancer in their 30s. I've even seen some in their late 20s. That is a lot less common in other parts of the country.
So it's really important to see your doctor even when you're in your 20s and 30s and discuss your risk factors.
The main suggestion is to follow the American Cancer Society recommendations. They're very well thought out, and they basically tell you that between the ages of 20 and 39, you should, if you wish, learn how to perform a self-exam, but do see your physician regularly and discuss breast health and have your breasts examined. And then after the age of 40, you should be getting a mammogram regularly. If you have increased risk for some reasons, then there are additional screening measures that you can take.
What are some of the risk factors for breast cancer?
So the largest risk factors for breast cancer are being a female, age, having a family history of breast cancer, even though only a small number of breast cancers are actually familial. Family history is very important, which tells us that there are genes we need to learn about that increase our risk of breast cancer.
The best thing a woman to do is to see her doctor every year, starting in her 20s, discuss breast health and family history, and learn how to do self-breast exam. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on our show today and provide this valuable information for our community.
It's my pleasure.
When we return, we'll be speaking with Darlene Santana of the Metropolitan Women and Children's Center about a topic that has been in the news lately, domestic abuse. So don't go away. We'll be right back with more Community Health Heroes. The recent NFL scandals has rekindled the discussion of domestic violence in our communities. Not since the high-profile O.J. trial 20 years ago has the nation been so focused on the topic of domestic abuse. A report released a few weeks ago by the Violence Policy Center entitled When Men Murder Women stated that almost 2 out of every 100,000 Louisiana women were murdered in 2012, and almost all knew their attackers. Here today to talk about domestic violence in our community and the resources available to help victims is Darlene Santana, Director of Programs for Metropolitan Center for Women and Children. Thank you for joining our show today, Darlene.
Thank you for having me.
So that recent study showed that Louisiana ranked 4th for men murdering women. Can you tell me what constitutes domestic violence and abuse?
Domestic violence is all about power and control. It's one partner controlling or exerting their power over the other. It could be physical abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, a number of things. It includes isolation, any tactic that the abuser can take to gain control over their partner. And I use the words partner because domestic abuse happens to men as well. More often it's women, but we do have men occasionally calling for services.
And why do you think men don't call as often as they should?
Yes, I think it goes unreported a lot. It's embarrassing. Men don't want to admit that their female partner is abusing them or hitting them or shoving them. The cases that we got, we did have a couple of men come in for emergency shelter. They don't stay nearly as long as the women and the children stay. They stay until the case can get to a point where they feel safe to leave, or maybe they have a friend or relative that lived out of town. And I think that was, if I remember correctly, that was the case for both of those victims that we had.
And with regards to ethnicity or race, does that impact domestic violence or abuse?
Domestic violence and abuse crosses our socioeconomic boundaries. It doesn't matter what color you are, how much money you have. We've had women that have come into our shelter for services who were working on getting a GED from that point to the point where we had a lady staying with us that had a PhD or a master's degree.
So it crosses all
socioeconomic boundaries. I think the higher profile cases where the family may be more influential, it goes unreported because there's an image to be maintained in the community that this upper middle class family, highly educated and professional, certainly wouldn't have this going on in their family. But the folks that don't have that image to maintain are more apt to call for services or come in for shelter.
And then we in the community will say, well, why does the woman stay? But instead of that, why aren't we asking, why do men abuse?
There you go. That's a very good question, and that's what we would like to see happen, because why does she stay just re-victimizes her, or it's blaming the survivor, blaming the victim. And we would like that focus to be put on, why does he abuse? He abuses because he can. He's, and I use the word he because in these cases, the male is stronger. Usually when there is a case of domestic violence, the victim is isolated, away from all her family and friends, is not working, is responsible for the children.
Right. You brought up a really good point. It tends to be a cycle. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
If you're brought up into it, if children are raised in a home where that's how they see their parents solve problems, is with their fists or with yelling or verbal abuse, that's what they learn. That's their role model. So as they grow up, they're abusing their partners or their girlfriends or boyfriends, and it just continues and continues. So we try to go into the schools, and I say try because sometimes it can be a challenge, but go into the schools and do education on healthy relationships, on dating violence, communication, anger management. And so that's how we hope to do that.
Like you said, you're going to help break that cycle. And so currently, we have some programs going on, or somebody wants to get some more information about your program. How do they go about doing that?
We're available on the website, on Facebook, and we have a 24-hour crisis line, and it's answered by a person, so you don't get press 1 to speak English. And our services are available in Spanish and Vietnamese. We have native speakers, a Hispanic social worker, as well as a Vietnamese social worker.
So it's 24/7?
24 hours a day, 7 days a week, holidays, it doesn't matter. You just have to call 504-837-5400. We have a Facebook page where we post a lot of good educational information on our Facebook page and on our website as well.
And I know our government locally is very aware of this problem, and we just had a recent session. And can you tell me a little bit about some of the laws that passed, or what the whole attitude is about domestic violence in our legislation?
Oh, it was wonderful in Baton Rouge this past summer. The United Way from Southeast Louisiana, whom we are a partner with, Helena Moreno, Kim Sport, Charmaine Cassiope, the Louisiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence, of which we remember that coalition, all got together and we just lobbied in Baton Rouge, and we got some unprecedented legislation passed to protect survivors of domestic violence. The biggest one was with gun control, with if an abuser is convicted of domestic violence, I believe it is that he can't have a gun for 10 years. His gun is removed. Another is a woman there's no waiting period for a divorce. If a survivor is seeking divorce, there's not that year-long waiting. No, it can happen right away. She can sue for support.
Like an alimony in the old days.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And I do believe that they also passed something that the man has to be educated on anger management.
Yeah, mandated matters intervention, yes.
Well, Darlene, this is just phenomenal information,
thank
a
you.
very important topic for our community, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Well, thank you. I hope it makes a difference in somebody. If they're questioning, should they stay or should they go, or they want education, they just need to call. Our services are free and confidential.
Thank you, Darlene. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. And we'll be right back with more Community Health Heroes.
Here we go. We're gonna make some juice.
It's gonna be good.
She's excited. A little bit of kale.
Please don't put this on
I'm putting it all over the line.
It's wet. It needs something. No, it'll go.
Don't break my juicer. Looks good.
You ready to try it?
Come on, baby.
Challenge your kids to be active and eat healthy.
It's okay.
Okay, all right.
They might surprise you.
Hey, she took another sip. You saw it?
Search We Can for more ideas on how you and your kids can get healthy together.
New Orleans is known for its delicious food, but dining at your favorite restaurants doesn't have to mean ditching your otherwise healthy diet. Eat Fit NOLA is a program of Ochsner Elmwood Fitness Center. It highlights the better-for-you items available on restaurants' menus, making it effortless for anyone to eat nutritiously anywhere in our city. Eat Fit NOLA is a proud partner of Fit NOLA, which was launched by the City of New Orleans in 2012 and was developed with broad community input. It provides a roadmap for our community to reach our goal of improving the physical and nutritional fitness for those who live, learn, work, and play in New Orleans. Each month, we will talk with a different local chef as they prepare dishes from the Eat Fit NOLA items on their menu. Joining us today to show us that bread is not the enemy and to talk about the Eat Fit NOLA dishes featured at his restaurant is Sean O'Mahony, owner and chef at Breads on Oak. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sean.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Can you tell me what you're going to prepare for us today?
Well, today I'm going to prepare a salmon sandwich on Old World Miche. We have over here a live food sandwich, which is all raw vegetables that are very healthy for you on our whole grain, Old World style bread. But again, we'll prepare the salmon sandwich.
Okay, and bread's gotten a really bad rap lately. It's also been accused of being the enemy, making us gain weight. Can you tell me why that isn't necessarily true?
Well, if you think about bread, it's over 10,000 years old. So how did something that carried human population for the past 10,000 years all of a sudden get a bad name? Mm-hmm. If you look back within the past 75 years, it was industrialization. Industrialization speeded the fermentation process, and that fermentation process is necessary to actually break down the starches into bread. And it also loosens the gluten bonds so your body can enjoy the proteins. Mm-hmm. So over those 10,000 years, we hand mixed the bread. We had really long fermentations for all that to occur. When we started doing the fast processing of bread, we stripped out the bran, we stripped out the germ. All we had left was just starches and a white bread that was very unhealthy for you.
So while you're preparing your salmon sandwich, go ahead and tell me about the ingredients that you're going to be using.
Okay, so this bread is probably the oldest bread in history. The type of bread making techniques here, because this is, it's a hand mix, it's all wild yeast starter. This is what's called a high extraction flour, so it's the flour with the germ which carries all the mineral. Mm-hmm. It's all organic, everything in our bakery is organic, and you can see all the different varied holes. That's from the long fermentation time. We'll start out with Chev. This is a hormone-free Chev. Okay. And it's all natural. Chev is a goat's cheese, and it's very creamy. And we'll take a little bit here, and this gives the sandwich just a nice little kick with the salmon. A little creaminess.
And so on your menu, can you tell me, are they mostly Eat Fit NOLA items, or tell me a little bit about the menu?
Our menu, we have several Eat Fit NOLA items, such as our live food sandwich, and our bakery was actually designed to be very healthy. Mm-hmm. The place you could visit every day, and if you're in an office environment, you can enjoy these foods without worry about gaining weight. A lot of it is dairy-free. Mm-hmm. It's vegan, so it's cholesterol-free. The pastries and breakfast pastries are low in sugar. So it is something that you can enjoy, not feel too full, and at the same time enjoy the benefits of freshly cut fruits that are in the pastries, freshly cut vegetables, as well as many of the grains and whole grains that we put in things such as our muffins.
And the salmon, where did you get your salmon from?
Now this is smoked wild Alaskan salmon. It's important to have things like to look for certain ingredients that will, that make your diet healthy. And that's because, say, farm-raised salmon can contain a lot of antibiotics, and you don't want to introduce that into your system.
So this is wild salmon from Alaska?
This is wild salmon from Alaska, wild smoked salmon. Next we have arugula. Arugula is sort of a peppery type lettuce and whenever you see so much greens, you're just getting all these vitamins and benefits from these fresh vegetables. These are all organic, local. The next we have, these are roasted tomatoes. The tomatoes are roasted with some olive oil, salt and pepper, and we add a little herbes Provence on it. And so we'll set these on it. Now, tomatoes are sort of neat because that redness comes from the glycoproteins, and tomatoes, of course, are wonderful cancer-fighting.
They have a lot of antioxidant properties. And then if we wanted to find you, where would we find you at?
Now, we're at 8640 Oak Street,
Okay.
towards the end of Oak Street, near the river bend.
And do you have a Facebook page?
We have a Facebook page. Our website is www.breadsonoak.com.
Okay.
You can order online. We're open Wednesdays through Sundays from 7:30 to 3 p.m. right now, and then we may be having later hours now as fall starts around.
And there's a special day of the week where we can come in and sample some of these awesome breads?
Yeah, Sundays are such a fun day because on Sundays we put a bread platter out with all different breads, and they're all sliced up. There's organic butter, jam. We also carry an earth balance. Now, in case you don't want the cholesterol from butter, if you're watching that, we have an organic healthy earth balance that you can use as a substitute, which happens to be one of my favorites with bread. So we have all that out. It's complimentary. Enjoy it with coffee, and it's an opportunity to try all the different breads.
Well, thank you so much for being on our show today and sharing all these organic, non-GMO products and beautiful sandwiches that you can truly eat healthy in New Orleans.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Join us next month when we feature another fantastic local restaurant offering nutritious and delicious Eat Fit NOLA options. Stay tuned for more Community Health Heroes. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We often talk about the physical aspects of cancer, its prevention, and its treatment, but we seldom hear about the spiritual support many people embrace when facing a cancer diagnosis. Here today to tell us about one such program is Christiana Stewart with the Compassion That Compels program. Thank you so much for being here today, Christiana.
Well, thank you for having us today. Sure, Compassion That Compels, I started as my two sister-in-laws and my sister bravely battled cancer. And so I started it as a Bible study, and then the smallest part of my ministry was compassion bags.
And can you tell me how it originally started? You were talking about you were in the waiting room with a letter.
I was. You know, I say that it started with a letter and a sweater. Mm-hmm. My sweater and a letter given to me by my sister-in-law with open during surgery written on it. Mm-hmm. And as I passed the day in the waiting room and watched as different families received news, both positive and negative news, I would read this letter over and over again. And there's one thing that my sister-in-law Sonia told me. She said, while you're in the waiting room, you show someone your heart, Christiana. Mm-hmm. And so we just believe at Compassion That Compels, this life is just a waiting room. So we've spent pretty much the last 4 years plus showing our heart to someone.
And tell me about your compassion bag.
Oh, the compassion bags are my favorite. Thank you for asking. So the bag itself, I just tell people, compassion bags are for any woman battling cancer. Your cancer doesn't need a color or a month to get a bag. But the bag itself, because we have to sometimes, and I'm sure if you've been familiar, had any surgery, you're usually stuffing your patient belongings into this oversized bag that looks like a reusable freezer bag. So I tell people, if you know me well, I like two things. I like pink and I like cute. So the very first thing was the bag. The second thing that was in there is a warm blanket, and Mama Rosie here pre-washes all of our blankets and rolls them, and as she rolls the blankets, she prays over the blankets and the woman that will receive that blanket. She also starches the ribbons too. So the blankets, go ahead.
This is so important though, because anybody that's been in a waiting room or recovery room, it's freezing in there. And so that is such a lovely touch.
Well, I like to say, if you're not freezing, the person sitting next to you or the person that brought you probably is. Yes. The other items, and they're all favorites of mine in the bag. There's a Jesus Calling devotional, and this is to remind a woman that she's first an overcomer in Christ. It's a short read for those that are going through treatment. You know, they'll laughingly say, I have chemo brain. And so, but it's just really such an encouragement to them. The notebook, anybody that's advocated for somebody while they're walking through their cancer journey, and also the patient themselves. You know that doctors will come in and they have these long Latin sounding names. And I used to turn to my sister-in-law and I'd say, I have a feeling this is not going to go away with just antibiotics. So that's to write down those Latin sounding names that you know it's not going away with antibiotics. We have decaf pumpkin spice tea, and we have a reusable mug as well. And there's a spiritual purpose behind every item in the bag.
So you have a special event coming up. Can you tell me about that?
We do. We are reaching our 1,000th cancer overcomer since July of 2013. So we responded to the call, and since that point, we are going to reach that 1,000th woman battling cancer in 34 states so far.
Wow. And can you tell me, if I want more information or my guests would like more information, how do we find out more about your program?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. We are a 501c3, and that means that if someone wanted to donate towards Compassion That Compels or request a bag and donate designated recipient, they can visit us on our website. It's compassionthatcompels.org. We're also Compassion That Compels on our social media as well.
That's great. I thank you so much for sharing this valuable information with us, this wonderful compassionate bag, and for being on our show today.
Thanks.
So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Community Health Heroes.
Storms come up fast. Take time for storm protection now. Reinforce your roof. Make sure you're adequately insured. Shutter windows and other openings. Elevate your home if you live in a low-lying area. To learn more about how you can protect your family and property from storms, visit getagameplan.org and click on Mitigation Plan. Louisiana, we can do this. This mitigation message brought to you by the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you would like to suggest a health topic, send us information on your health organization's events, or recommend your favorite Eat Fit NOLA restaurant, please visit our Facebook page or email us at communityhealthheroes@gmail.com, or visit our new website at www.communityhealthheroes.org. We hope that the information we provided today will help you and your family live healthier and happier lives. I'm Dr. Penny Walker, and I'll see you next time on Community Health Heroes.